Hello there! Boy, have I got news for you. This could be something very, very interesting in the near future. Google has tried to hide their own story, and I'll get into that when we read the article. Basically, AI has proven that the moon photos are fake from the Apollo missions, and it's Google's own neural network, the most advanced AI. And it's not just doing it randomly, it's comparing them with probes from the Chinese, which are photographs on the moon's surface, which it says are genuine. And the Apollo pictures are fake for multiple reasons, which we've been saying for years. Now, buckle up, because you're about to see something that could very gradually and yet relatively soon change the entire world's perception of the moon landings of the 1960s and early 70s. So let me share my screen and I'll show you the article that I'm talking about. Now, if you want to share this article, tell people to go to Sibrel.com. That's S as in Sam, I, B as in boy, R-E-L, Sibrel.com. Just go to the home page where I'm at right now, scroll down past the book, which is, of course, for sale. It's a book that goes into great detail about what really happened behind the scenes in the production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It has the deathbed confession of Cyrus Eugene Akers, who eyewitnessed the faking of the moon landing at Cannon Air Force Base. It has the interview I did with Betty Grissom, who says her husband, who was going to be the first man to walk on the moon, was murdered by the CIA. Her opinion, not mine. This is available in print, Kindle, or audio, and I read it myself. The links will take you to Amazon, and just beneath here is the story. Breaking news, Google's advanced AI neural network says Chinese moon pictures are real and American moon pictures are fake. For the full article, you have to click on it and it'll take you to the PDF, which I'm going to read to you. Breaking news, Google's advanced AI neural network says Chinese moon pictures are real and American moon pictures are fake. Google's highly advanced AI, the American neural network, just said that the American Apollo moon pictures are fake, and that the Chinese moon pictures, which were taken from an unmanned probe, are real. This was announced to Russian President Vladimir Putin at the latest international AI conference, who was not at all surprised by the findings. The link to the Russian to English translation of this breaking news story was quickly nullified hours after posting. Google Translate then refused to translate a copy of the article from Russian to English, and the original Russian link now even threatens the user with, quote, "You are trying to access a URL that is a suspected child sexual abuse or exploitation material site." Wow. And here's a look at it. I did a screenshot for proof of that. Not only does it warn you at that, it says by proceeding, you are aware that you will give access to your data. I mean, come on, you'll be associated with child pornography and will get access on your computer. How many people would click proceed on that one? This is really, really desperate on Google's CIA part. Google's search engine, originally created with funding by the U.S. military's DARPA for psychological propaganda, it's an established fact, they don't deny it, is really trying hard to kill this historical revelation its own advanced AI just made, declaring that the pictures from the corrupt federal government's moon missions are indeed fake, and that the recent Chinese probe pictures of the moon's surface are very real in comparison. There's a picture of Putin at the conference. The important thing to note is that an emotionless AI neural network is completely unbiased and objective, unlike human beings, who are highly emotionally biased on the moon landing controversy, either out of misguided and exploited patriotism, overzealous pride in technology, or simply the unwillingness to admit that they are wrong. It's amazing how much pride blinds you from seeing the truth. We've been thinking for a long time about what to test it on. In the end, we decided to take photos of the U.S. Apollo missions because there is a lot of discussion among cabinet members of governments of the world whether it was real or not. We ran Apollo pictures through the deepfake protocol and got a very interesting result, says the consultant to President Vladimir Putin, who was shown the results at the conference.
То есть почти все объекты на этом фото ей кажутся не настоящими. В то же время вот фотография китайского лунохода у нее особенных вопросов не вызывает.
А это то, что кажется не настоящим?
Да, да, вот то, что красное.
Почему-то сетка гугловская, не наша. Так, чтобы не было предвзятости. Удивительно, но там точно вот... Она смотрит по очень много параметров, в том числе там, падение светотеней и так далее, и показывает, что инкорпорирована фотография.
Without any emotional attachment, deductive reasoning concludes the simple fact that it is impossible for technology to be more advanced in the past than it is in the future. Today, with 50 years better rocket and computer technology, NASA can only send astronauts 1,000th the distance to the moon than they claim they did on the first attempt, ahead of schedule, with antiquated, untried 1960s equipment, which only had 1/1,000,000th the computing power of a cell phone. And here is the picture that the AI analyzed, among others, but this is the one they used as their sample. The number one supposed defense of the alleged moon mission is that thousands of people assembled the technology and you can't keep a secret from that many people. Really. The first atomic bomb was assembled with the assistance of 129,500 people, yet only 8 people knew what they were building. A large national bank with branches throughout the country may have about that many bank tellers. Do you really think what a bank teller knows versus what the CEO knows about corruption in the bank are identical? The tellers are clueless, all 129,500 of them. Do you really think the CIA is so stupid as to tell the person making the spacesuit glove or the rocket door's handle, hey, we're really not going to the moon. Be sure not to tell anyone. Unlike World War II, which took place on Earth in front of billions of eyewitnesses, supposedly landing on the moon only had 3 eyewitnesses, all on the payroll of the federal government and all ex-military. There were no reporters on the moon for independent verification. We had to trust Richard Nixon, who didn't even have the guts to be at the launch in case the lie unraveled. He showed up for the second launch, though, after they had safely gotten away with it. Eugene Kranz, flight director for Apollo, finally admitted after he retired that even NASA employees in the heart of their command center could tell no difference whatsoever between a practice simulation and an allegedly real flight, when pre-recorded flight data was fed to all of their computer screens. If they cannot tell the difference between real and fake, then how could we as children watching it from home on television? And here are the picture before the processing and after the processing of the most advanced AI in the world. It highlights in red all the elements of the picture that are fake, and it's a lot of them. What parts of the moon picture supplied by the federal government did Google's AI conclude are fake? About half of the elements in the picture. The AI saw multiple discrepancies between the distribution of light on the mountain and the direction of the astronaut's shadow. In addition, the neural network did not like the blurriness in the foreground and said that it is not a real outdoor setting. A section of the mountain to the left behind the astronaut's back is also highlighted in red because it's a fake backdrop, and the entire astronaut figure is also highlighted in red as the AI concludes that it is actually not an astronaut at all, rather a miniature of an astronaut, a doll that was placed on an electrically lit miniature movie set of the moon's surface. And look at this picture from the set of the James Bond movie GoldenEye, in which they used miniatures all throughout the movie, and it looks super, super real. Here's a picture, supposedly, of the lunar lander on the moon's surface from the same reel of the other fake one. The lunar lander, if it were real, would be about 15 feet tall, or is that a movie set miniature that's about a foot tall? I wonder. Here are pictures I've been showing for years. This is the way sunlight looks. The shadows always run parallel. Over here, out of the picture, was a building, and when the shadows run up the building, they're still parallel. It doesn't matter if the landscape changes. They go parallel up the building, parallel on the fence, parallel over a hill, and parallel over flat ground. You see? This is the way sunlight looks with shadows. They never intersect if they're genuinely lit by sunlight, like they claim the pictures of the moon are. And here's a picture from the last mission to the moon, proving they never went, because here the astronaut shadow is at 12 o'clock and a rock about 5 feet away, the shadow is going at 9 o'clock. A 90-degree difference from objects 5 feet apart, impossible to take place in sunlight, can only take place with a very nearby electrical light, proving the fraud in one photograph. Here's a picture of the Chinese lunar rover before processing on the left and after processing on the right. No red highlights because it is not a fake image. Here's Putin taking a look at it, in which he replied, "Isn't that interesting?" And that's it, because the guy already knows. Is it possible that the world's leaders are preparing to release the fact that the early moon missions were indeed falsified? A hint of such can be seen on the cover of the 2024 Precognitive Economist magazine forecast for next year, wherein the Apollo rocket is shown in the upper left with a noticeable question mark beside it. A high-ranking source in the Chinese Space Agency told me personally that their government is well aware of the federal government's moon fraud and has been for some time, yet is blackmailing NASA in exchange for space technology for not exposing their fraud, all of which is a violation of the federal government's own espionage laws. Apparently, Russia is also blackmailing the United States, hence no surprise by Putin, which is another good reason for the truth to come out. And here is the cover of the Economist magazine, and you can see in the top left the moon rocket with the question mark, and here's the enlargement of it, the moon rocket with a question mark. I even have an eyewitness who saw them film Apollo 11 at Cannon Air Force Base, their Special Ops headquarters, in June of 1968, who confessed, as he was dying and fearing the judgment of God, that he was a murderer. he murdered a coworker at Cannon Air Force Base in 1968. The military police conducted an investigation into the murder right before he died. When they asked him why he murdered his coworker, the former chief of security at Cannon Air Force Base said that they had both eyewitnessed the filming of the first moon landing at their base in 1968, a year beforehand. His coworker thought that it was morally wrong. They were going to tell a reporter in order to expose it to the public, who he felt had a right to know, and the security chief murdered his coworker to keep the moon landing fraud a secret. Funny thing to say while you're dying of cancer, if it weren't true. All of this I verified, and I write about it in great detail in this amazing deathbed confession in my book, Moon Man, The True Story of a Filmmaker on the CIA Hit List, which is available at Sibrel.com. The whistleblower's surviving son confirmed that all of this is true in my research for the book, and the son was even recently threatened with death face-to-face by 2 CIA agents for telling me this information. The United States Senate Intelligence Committee, the FBI, and even the White House press secretary were involved investigating these illegal death threats made by rogue CIA personnel against American citizens. President Kennedy's own nephew, who has more access to the JFK files than Oliver Stone, says that the CIA killed their own president because he was going to shut them down because of so much corruption in that agency. Defense Secretary during the Vietnam War, Robert McNamara, said before he died that the entire alleged attack on a U.S. ship by North Vietnam, because of which Congress entered the war, was entirely fabricated and never happened. Thus, the corrupt federal government killed their own duly elected president and needlessly slaughtered 58,220 of their own soldiers. So I do not think faking an image of the moon on television is too corrupt for them. If it were not for people's emotional attachment to this pride-puffing event, they would see the sad, despicable facts as they are, just like the world's most advanced and completely impartial AI did. Or is the most advanced AI in the world stupid? Especially when it said the new unmanned probe pictures of the lunar surface from China are real in comparison. Alleged anti-deep state people like Glenn Beck, who recently interviewed me about my book without reading it and criticizing my book's 16 supportive interactive video links without watching them, fawn over moon astronauts like they are gods instead of the accessory to numerous murders of innocent Americans that they are. In Beck's mind, I know America has gotten bad, but at least we went to the moon. No, Glenn, it is that bad. Wake up and smell the manure. The bitterest truth is better than the sweetest lie. Now, here's the interesting thing. 4 out of 5 people who watch A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, if you haven't seen it, just go to Sibrel.com. It's on the homepage for free. 4 out of 5 people who previously thought the moon missions were real changed their mind. Now, out of that group, 4 out of 5 are convinced because of the window shot, the footage I uncovered of the crew of Apollo 11 faking being halfway to the moon with a 1-foot model of the Earth. The lights come up and you see it's a 1-foot model of the Earth. Dated 2 days into the flight, with the CIA on a 3rd track of audio telling them to fake a 4-second radio delay as if they're beyond Earth orbit, which they never left. And 50 years later, they still cannot leave Earth orbit. That's why there's MANNEQUINS orbiting the moon and the Orion spacecraft. Isn't that something? You can drive cars and play golf on the moon. in the 1970s, and today you can only send mannequins to orbit the moon. Here is Neil Armstrong claiming this is the part that they did show to the world, okay? This is the best take of it, you know. Again, the camera is really away from the window. This is what you'll see in a minute, but these are the walls of the spacecraft in Earth orbit. And then here's the window of the spacecraft, outside of which is the Earth shine coming very brightly through, filling the whole window. And they put a little photograph of the Earth over here. And then they inserted a little crescent piece of black material to make it look like what's called the Terminator line, dividing night and day. So this is the footage that NASA claims, and Neil Armstrong is about to claim that this is genuine footage of being halfway to the moon.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here.
Okay, so he's claiming that this is 130,000 miles out, right? Okay, that's what he's claiming. And then he's claiming here that the lens is right up against the window, which it would have to be. Okay, so if you're halfway to the moon and this is the Earth, you know, behind you, right, then you're going to have that lens right up against the glass.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
Okay, so Neil Armstrong just said they only had one view of the Earth. It's filled up with the TV camera, meaning the lens is right up against that glass to shoot that tiny Earth far away. That's what he's claiming, right? Well, let's just take a look at it again, okay? Here is the actual location of the camera, right? Remember, this is the very same shot that he said a moment ago was the Earth, you know, floating in space, right? Okay, we don't need the audio here. So here, okay, so this is the Earth floating in space. He just said this was the Earth floating in space. But this is the part they thought wasn't being recorded and never to be broadcast. This is the unedited reel. This is a work light inside of the spacecraft here. Either that or it's a giant UFO, right? Floating around the Earth, right? And now you're going to see them remove part of the crescent insert and the photograph in front of the window. That's Buzz Aldrin doing that right there. Faking it. They also say this is the way 10 did it. Apollo 10 faked it the same way. And then you're going to see the real location of the Earth and the window. And the window is actually, that's the window right there. So all the time, this was the window of the spacecraft. See how bright the Earth is? This is Earth shine. They're in Earth orbit, right? They just said that this shot, you know, was 130,000 miles away from the Earth, right? And yet, which in fact we can take a look at them side by side here. Here's the wide shot, right? And then here he is saying he's, you know, halfway to the moon or 130,000 miles out.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Okay, so that's supposed to be the Earth floating in space. Now let's take a look at it over here, right? And let's take a look at it. Okay, so to the right is 130,000 miles out, according to NASA and Neil Armstrong, right? That's the Earth over there on the right. But wait a minute, it's not. It's the window. They're using a 1 foot diameter circular photograph of the Earth, putting it on top of the circular window. And now here they are breaking down the shot, the photograph, in order to get ready for an interior showing the astronauts. You know what I mean? So there they are. There's proof right there that it's a fake shot. Here's even an outtake here when an astronaut's arm gets in front of the window. Look at this. Oh my goodness. So if that's really the Earth floating in space, that must be the arm of God going right in front of it. Oh my goodness. So this is the smoking gun. This is them faking being halfway to the moon. Okay? There they are getting ready, and there they open the iris, and there's Michael Collins, and there's the very bright Earth out the window. For me, it was the window shot. There was a lot of suspicious things, but I said, you know, I'm not going to say for certain it was fake. And then I saw that footage and I said, it's over. A news director at NBC says it proves beyond a doubt that the moon missions are fake, and it refused to broadcast it for fear it causes civil war. 10 years later, a new news director at NBC sees it. They fly me to New York. They put me up in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. They offer me thousands of dollars for the exclusive rights to broadcast it nationwide, proving the moon missions are fake. They get a call from the federal government telling them not to do it, and they back down. That's how condemning that footage is. You see that? However, that's because I'm a cinematographer. That's what gets it for me. Some people say it's the expressions of the astronauts at their one and only group press conference, where they look like they're at the funeral of their mother instead of the winning locker room at the Super Bowl. You can clearly see, if you're looking at psychology, that they're lying and they regret it. However, an objective AI, an American objective AI, comparing lunar surface pictures from Chinese probes and lunar surface pictures from the 1969 and early 70s moon missions, and it's saying the Chinese probe pictures are real and the American Apollo pictures are fake. I think that may be the window shot for most people. I think it might be the finger out of the dike. The Economist magazine seemed to indicate so. Now, that doesn't mean the dam of the lie is going to come down all at once. However, once that finger comes out, water starts trickling through. That friction makes a bigger hole, which makes a bigger hole, which makes a bigger hole. Maybe a year, 2 years from now, maybe it'll come out. Maybe it'll be publicly acknowledged that the moon landing fraud did indeed happen. They can't go to the moon today with 54 years better technology. So how can NASA, who never kept a schedule in their entire existence, except the most complicated one of all time, they did have a schedule with 50 years better technology? They were 100% behind schedule just to put an unmanned probe orbiting the moon. Okay? So something is going on here. And I think this news story is breaking it. All the links to this will be in the description. If you want people to see this article, go to Sibrel.com.